a nerve reaction, visual eye to action, that is a sign of conscious connection. Those fish are connected and telepathically communicate. So I'm just telling you, your body is operating from a telepathic method. Each of your cells are communicating with the other cell in an instant way. That's the only way to explain how 90 trillion bugs are all operating in your best and highest good. This is fact. I'm not telling you made up stuff. The consciousness part may not be part of what the scientists talk about, but the 90 trillion bugs in your body really do exist. So that's important from a lot of perspectives. You know, one of the harder things to treat for some of your clients is when they come in and they are full of sadness or stress, and that is impacting their skin or impacting their body or impacting their desire to get better or many different things. And I just want you to know it's real. And today we're going to talk about scalar waves. Scalar waves are the waves that make up your atoms. And that takes me to the next part of this slide. So another real thing in science that you have in your textbooks that you learned in school, but we never asked the next question, was what atoms are. So you're made up of 100% atoms. I think anybody in this room, if they were asked that question, our cells are made up of atoms, right? We know the atomic table, and we all know about that. But what we forget is that the atom is 99.99% energy, and this little tiny bit is the protons, electrons, and neutrons. Little tiny bit. And of course you can go smaller and smaller to quarks and get smaller in your atomic particles. But the reason why I bring this up to you is because you are just this much matter, and I say that in parentheses because even Einstein says matter is just energy. But you're this much matter, and you are the rest energy. So you are 99% energy according to your textbooks. They don't say that these things are shoved together so that all the energy that you see circling outside the cell disappears. They say you're 100% atoms, and most of that is energy. And I bring that up to you because that energy I call scalar energy. Not everyone uses the same term. Some quantum physicists talk about, a universal grid, and there's many different things you can look at. And I'm here to tell you, as a physician who never learned anything about that at all in medical school, that it's really easy to get confused because the scientists are over here staring at cellular activity, and the quantum physicists are over here figuring out what makes the cells exist, and the two guys never get in a room and have a beer. I have no idea why. They should be talking a lot more than they do. But like I'm doing a clinical trial on scalar wave medicine, and I want to do everything so clean that there's no physician who would look at it and go, this is the hole in this study, right? So it's double-blind, placebo-controlled, peer-reviewed. So peer-reviewed means you go to this board. The board analyzes the research project that you're doing to make sure you're doing it correctly. And I'm trying to explain scalar waves to them. And I'm like, well, this is what we know, that, atoms are made up of all this energy. As quantum physics tells us definitively, there's just this massive activity of energy going on at a deep level, subatomic level within our bodies. Oh, they were having none of that. It was so funny. They were like, we don't know what you're trying to say. They just would refuse. And I said, well, you should go read up quantum physics material. We're not going to go read anything, and so I ended up just backing off and saying, oh, that's just marketing language. All we did is we put the water in the machine and we shot some radio waves through it, and now we want people to try it to treat acne. But at the end of the day, for whatever reason, these guys are resistant to listening to about scalar waves, which are what your body is made of, and this is a big part of what we do at Osmosis, because for whatever reason, that's part of, when I asked the question, I said, how do I treat acne now that I know that it comes from toxins? And I wanted a solution to it. I'm telling you, the power of intention. We were just at a conference with Lori Creed. I think some of you, I just met someone who was at that conference as well. And one of the key messages that Lori Creed had in her discussions was the power of intention. It's very real. If you don't set a power of intention to be a successful esthetician, it's not going to happen. If you don't have a desire to be bigger and better, you will stay where you are. The power of intention is real, and the power of intention is what brought me to the solutions that I have today. So, that being said, let us talk about the miraculous skin. So now, coming out of the subatomic to the very real, you could still sit there in awe. I mean, you could sit there in awe all day long with quantum physics. It's crazy stuff. You don't even have to know it. You don't have to know any of what I just said. You just have to believe that it's possible, know that there's more that we don't know. So many questions we don't know the answer to. And then start looking at this. And I'll tell you what, the scientists look at this, and they only know so much. You know, this drawing is based on several studies where they measured and found a specific growth factor in this body, whether it's FGF, fibroblast growth factor, VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, platelet-derived growth factor, all these different growth factors. But what they did find was a very consistent and remarkable thing, which is the body never stopped. You wound it, it goes into action, right? And it has a very perfect timing to it. And this is one of the challenges as estheticians, as we look at this, is with all the perfect timing of the body and its wound healing capacity, we start playing around with it in a negative way. So what I'm telling you osmosis does is it says, I think I've got the 10 to 30 different ingredient tools that this wound will respond best to. And if I put them in this arena, it will thrive and operate at its best. So if it's missing something or if it needs support in some way, I think I know which tools it needs to make that wound heal fastest and best. But what the industry has had so often is the wrong tools. Retin-A is a great example. You put Retin-A on wounded skin and it will interfere with the wound repair process. You put excess oxygen on wounded skin and it will interfere with the wounded process. So we're going to go through and talk about these key ingredients that so often have been the cornerstone of our industry so we can understand better. But just remember that on your face alone you have billions of cells that are operating, again, in this incredible unison with all this the factors and cofactors involved. If you take a laser and you shut down a blood vessel, your body goes, oh, well, I need blood there. I need to feed that zone, and it'll start working away, and it'll actually, in 3 days, create a brand new blood vessel. Pretty amazing, right? And all the little tentacles of that blood vessel, it knows where to put them. So it's constantly in repair mode. It's constantly trying to figure out what to do. And when I looked at it from a global perspective, I said, okay, so when is it malfunctioning? The answer I got was it's never malfunctioning. I mean, you can interfere with it and cause it to function poorly, but on its own, it is always doing the best thing possible. So when you see someone who's got eczema, and you're like, boy, that skin is tweaked out. There's something wrong with that skin. Absolutely not. That person is trying to dump toxins, and those toxins are causing the skin to shed so that it'll dump them faster. It's red because the circulation is bringing toxins to that area and trying to repair the damage of the shedding skin, but the entire process was perfect. When you see an age spot, you're seeing the melanocyte create an umbrella of protection over a wound. You're not seeing a dysfunctional melanocyte, which is what I used to teach a decade ago, because that's what the textbooks tell you. Nothing is functioning improperly. Even cancer. And I'm not going to stop short of telling you I have it figured out, but I'm going to tell you that cancer is, well, I can tell you autoimmune. Autoimmune disease, 9 times out of 10, is an infection in the body. The body's simply going after the infection and creating an inflammatory response in that area. But cancer is believed to be an infection. Either viral, sometimes fungal, and the body, again, going after a zone and destroying tissue in the process. So you can look at a lot of it. I mean, why is it that breast cancer is so rampant? Well, it turns out when you see 1 to 2 million toxins a day, I'm just throwing a random number out there, but I would estimate 75% of them resemble estrogens. Huge percentage of the toxins that we face on a daily basis have an estrogen mimicking quality. It's called estrogenic. Very important concept we'll get to in a minute. So just think of everything that the skin is doing. Here's a great example. Broken capillary. A broken capillary is not broken. Your body needed extra support in that area, and it literally created blood vessels to feed that area better. That is what a broken capillary is. So it's actually just a wound. All these things we're seeing on our face are just a wound. Sometimes it's a reflection of wounds on the inside. And that's where it gets a little confusing, because not everything that's on your skin is happening because of a wound on the skin. And that's the part we'll try to put together here. So, as I mentioned, making collagen is a very challenging, arduous, stack by stack by stack, amino acids, proline, lysine, glycine, proline, lysine, glycine, over and over again. I need more copper, I need more zinc, I need, and they're constantly, vitamin C. We're going to talk about how vitamin C circles this. So you have this process going on all the time. Every time you have a shortage, it's going to make less. When you have less oxygen in your skin, it's going to make less. It's just easy to follow the path and see the reasons why this is happening. As it turns out, well, we'll get into all the physiologic reasons for aging, but bottom line is, it is a challenge, and it's not the easiest thing to overcome. You've got to overcome the 1% loss and then add to it in order to reverse aging. The other thing to remember is that collagen manufacturing happens in your dermis. And the entire skincare industry has done a very poor job of figuring out how to reach your dermis. You have to have delivery systems in play in order to reach your dermis. Otherwise, you get a 2 to 5% penetration rate. And of course, keeping the skin healthy is critical. So, a couple of things. Let me just see how badly I'm off time. 1 hour, so it feels like we're okay. All right, so vitamin A's role. This was a sort of a new revelation for me, because I couldn't figure out this whole concept of, the skin is dysfunctional. It puts that really important vitamin A, the collagen manufacturing vitamin A, at the surface of your skin, where it disappears when you go out in the sun. That's just not true. So I had to understand, well, why would the skin put vitamin A in that area? And the answer is that some things are designed to absorb sunlight, and one of them is retinol palmitate. So the reason why your skin has so much retinol palmitate is because it helps protect you from the sun. But the challenge is, it's got to come from the inside. It's got to be made by retinol, because when you try to put too much retinol palmitate on the topical level, you create damage to your epidermis. That actually makes the problem worse. You have sun exposed. Now you are sun sensitive, basically, because you've disrupted your natural protective mechanism. But that's the reason why we have so much retinol palmitate. But here's the bad news. Retinol palmitate doesn't make collagen. There's not one study in the world that tells us that retinol palmitate makes collagen. So we all think, well, gosh, retinol palmitate is one of the ones that's important because the skin has a lot of it, and it's one of the ones that disappears when we go out in the sun, so we must need to replenish it. And both of those things are true, but not in one study ever will you find that retinol palmitate turns into retinaldehyde, which turns into retinoic acid. Because at the end of the day, the ingredient that your skin uses to make collagen is retinoic acid. But it does it in incredibly precise doses. Just enough to go do that, because if retinoic acid is floating around in your skin, it starts to disrupt all the wound healing. Because retinoic acid is only present in the manufacturing phase. That's not the first phase. If I put an acid on someone's face, there's at least 2 days happening before retinoic acid should be involved. Because I got to get rid of all the damage. So if you're going to build, that's an analogy I use all the time, if you burn the house, you got to clear the foundation to build the structure back up. And that's what we're talking about here. Is you're going to allow your skin to remove the damaged goods in order to start building back up. So if retin A is present in the beginning, it screws everything up because it's giving confusing messages. That's why retin A thins the skin by 18% a year, proven in research. We have the study on our website. It's a very definitive retinoic acid study. 18% thinning of the papillary dermis if you use it every day for a year. So, not a good ingredient, and yet the most important ingredient to make collagen. You see the trick? So some things you just got to let the skin figure out the timing on, because you'll never get it right. One of the things you're going to hear me say today is you should not ever take hormone supplementation. You should never take hormone supplementation because you are blindly guessing at doses that are only accurate for very brief moments throughout your day. If you put a cream on, or you're taking a pill because you're short of this or that at 9 a.m. when you took your blood work test or your saliva test, that cream is putting out doses that aren't even accurate from the get-go, but throughout the day, when your body's adjusting your hormone levels probably 50 times a day, it's totally off. You're going up and down in your cycles in very precise manner, and you're blindly putting a cream on there and hoping that it fills some